Howdy, y'all, and welcome into another edition of the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I'm Jacob Milham, joined today, per usual, by my illustrious friend, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, it's a lovely Sunday here in the neighborhood. We got the Kansas City Chiefs coming up here in an hour and a half. We got to talk about some Royals baseball first, huh?
Yeah, and maybe some general baseball stuff if we've got time. I gotta
Yeah,
tell you, Jacob, my morning did not start great.
Why not?
I woke up this morning to my dog puking all over my bed.
No.
Fortunately, the comforter is
goodness.
machine washable, so I'm all set. But that was not the way I wanted to start my Sunday morning.
Absolutely not. And you know what? At least you didn't roll over and just pull it tighter over you and fall back asleep.
That is true.
That would have been an even worse way to wake up.
And now she's sleeping on the couch like she did nothing wrong.
That's usually how it goes with dogs.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Goodness gracious. Well, we got a lot of Royal stuff to talk about. We got some tidbits from General Manager JJ Piccolo that we want to talk about. Plus, we got some awards and accolades that the Royals are getting and talk about their finishes. But before we get too deep into the episode, as always, just a reminder, go check out royalsreview.com. Got the rumblings up there every single day. We keep you abreast of the Royals news and analysis as, you know, things pop up. The offseason, we've had a lot to talk about so far since the postseason itself has ended, but it can, you know, it's not a linear thing. It can come in waves. So that we might miss some things.
I want to say that I was gonna predict a trade within the next couple of weeks, but then I felt deep inside my gut, just reached down there and I said, no, I don't feel it yet, actually. So I'm not gonna predict it yet.
Not
I want
quite
to
yet.
predict it. I'm ready to hear
know.
about an addition to the roster, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
It is, you know, the clock is ticking and we will get there eventually. There hasn't really been that blockbuster move yet from any team.
No big trades, no big free agents. Nobody even has really re-signed any of their free agents. We've heard some rumors about some options that are likely being picked up, but haven't been picked up yet. We do have, I think it's this week, we have the tender deadline.
I believe so, actually. Hold on, let me double check that.
We could have some former Royals to talk about this time next week. And if the Royals are going to trade Jonathan India, this is probably the week to do it before you've tendered him. Because I think I've been consistent, I hope, in saying that I think they'll non-tender him if they can't trade him. So, because you just can't pay that guy $10 million. You just can't.
I don't think so.
Not with the salary constraints that the Royals are under. If you're the Yankees or you're the Dodgers, you're like, $10 million for Jonathan India, sign me up. But if you're the Royals, you just can't do that unless you're willing to completely blow your budget. Which I'm fine with if they want to do that. Go if you're like, yeah, we're paying Jonathan India $10 million and hoping we've signed enough guys for him to be a backup, a utility guy, then go for it by all means. I don't anticipate that.
Yeesh. Well, hold on. We might have to change our plans a little bit for the podcast because there's another deadline I completely forgot about. November 18th is one of those 2 for deadlines. So the players who got that qualifying offer extended to them, they have to accept that by 1 p.m. Pacific time. The deadline to add players to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5 draft is that same day at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So we might have to touch on that a little bit. But yeah, November 20th, and we're recording this on the 16th. So we will, you know,
so we'll have some 40-man stuff to talk about next podcast, and some non-tender stuff to talk about the podcast after that, or some tender stuff.
Yeah,
or some tender loving.
If my paycheck's on the line, I would love some of that tender loving, huh?
Or a tender steak. I would take a tender steak.
That does sound good too.
I made myself a steak yesterday. It was not tender. I got to do better next time.
Well, don't worry. You know, Patrick, he loves to put that ketchup.
Why
on the
would
steak.
you remind me of this one character? No, I'm sure he's got plenty of character flaws, but that's the one that I know about. Because Patrick Mahomes, we talk about his football skills, but his media savviness might be his best skill.
It might be. And then, you know, things I talk about waves. Well, we really don't have another deadline until after Thanksgiving. You got the winter meetings in early December, and then we'll see what happens when, you know, you come to January is when we get into arbitration stuff, yada, yada, yada. But there's going to be a lot of free agency and trade moves in between now and then, I'm very, very sure. So stay abreast of that up at royalsreview.com. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the MVP race. We
Let's.
finally we finally got the answer. Aaron Judge narrowly edged out
Yeah.
Al Raleigh for the AL MVP race. And then meanwhile, Shohei Ohtani, I don't think surprised anyone, unanimously winning his fourth MVP in 5 seasons,
Jeez
if I
Louise.
recall correctly. Just a crazy run from that guy. And we talk about how he's a generational talent. That's what generational
I
talents do.
mean, he might be more than a generational talent. He might just be the best ever. We
He might
might
be.
never see a better player than Shohei Ohtani. And I don't think baseball has seen a better one than him before this.
Probably not. Probably not. How old is he now? Oh man, this is scary. Yep, 31. He's gonna be 31 on opening day.
Jeez
We
Louise.
got a lot more Shohei Ohtani to watch. But primarily, where did the Royals fall in this race? Well, I don't think it surprised anyone to see that Bobby Witt Jr., even in his quote unquote down year, was in the top 5 for the AL MVP race, finishing 4th behind Jose Ramirez, which that gap between him and Witt was pretty tight as well. So I think that's, I got a little, as a Royal homer, I was like, well, why the heck isn't Bobby a finalist at least? But Jose Ramirez, he's a pretty great all around player in his own right.
And his team
So
made the playoffs.
yeah, that was, when you get into the narrative stuff a little bit there, that does matter when it comes to voting.
If the Royals make the playoffs instead of the Guardians, I think Bobby finishes 3rd. And remember, everyone kept telling me how bad Bobby was this year. If bad Bobby is 4th in the MVP, I'm gonna be okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be just fine with that. This is, I think that when you look at it through the lens of this was a down year or this was a step back from 2024, that not only makes his 2024 season look even better, but that, if you didn't expect him to be a superstar year in, year out already, well, now you should. Now this is like, this guy is legit. He is, I believe, one of the few true 5-tool players in Major League Baseball. Winning the Gold Glove, going platinum, all MLB at his position. Like it was a great year
Yeah.
from Bobby Witt Jr. And then you had to look a little bit further down the ballot, but I was surprised and appreciative that Michael Garcia did get a little bit of love in MVP voting. He was named on 4 AL ballots in 3 in 9th and 1 in 10th. Ended up with a 15th place finish. And then another finisher in postseason accolades that we needed to talk about, Noah Cameron, finished 4th in AL Rookie of the Year voting, which it was hard to go up against the 3 position players that were ahead of him. He was the top pitcher for the rookies in the AL. So that's worth something.
If Jacob Wilson doesn't have a terrible sophomore slump, I will be shocked. I will be amazed. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I continue to not buy it. Nick Kurtz, Roman Anthony, they're the real deal. There's a lot of questions about whether Noah Cameron's the real deal. A lot of people still doubt him, but man, he did it all year, and he didn't ever really slump. Jacob Wilson had a pretty gnarly slump at one point. So
that he did.
That's the difference to me. And the only thing I will say about Roman Anthony winning that over Cameron is that Roman Anthony was very late coming up, and then he got hurt and missed the end of the year. So It feels like Noah Cameron should have been able to finish ahead of him, but it also, I heard this on the Kaufman Quarter podcast, which I feel like I plug once an episode at this point. But Soren Petro was pretty ticked off because he was saying it felt like they were voting for who they thought was going to have the best career, not who had the best rookie year.
Yeah.
And voting for Roman Anthony over Noah Cameron absolutely feels that way.
Yeah. There is, I'm trying to think. If you haven't listened to the podcast before, first off, thank you for listening, but I am one of those noted, I wouldn't call myself a doubter in Noah Cameron. I just don't think he's going to be as good in year 2 as he was in year 1. That's all. I think he's still going to be a valuable number 4, number 5 guy in a rotation, preferably somewhere else than in Kansas City.
Whoa, you prefer he be somewhere else? Jacob,
hey, listen,
the St. Joe native out of town.
Listen, I want that outfielder, man, and if it costs Noah Cameron, I'm okay with that.
I mean, if it costs Noah Cameron, fine. I just would rather have the outfielder and Noah Cameron.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And we did get a little bit more of a good picture into that thanks to general manager JJ Piccolo. There is, before we go like point by point here, there's one thing that I wanted to clarify because on the last podcast, we had a report from The Athletic that laid some things out very much in like black and white, making it seem like Cole Reagans, Seth Lugo, and Michael Wacha were off limits. They weren't getting moved at all. I trust a little bit more from Annie Rogers here because, you know, she talks to these people. She's been with this organization for years. The way that she worded is, Piccolo didn't go so far as to say anyone was off limits, but he insinuated that trading Cole Reagans would take a, quote, very hefty return, and he pointed to Seth Lugo's and Michael Wacha's commitment to Kansas City with their contracts as why it would be difficult to trade him.
Yeah.
It is unlikely those three go, but not impossible. So, you know, for those folks, for those Boston Red Sox fans out there dreaming on
Christian
Cole
Campbell,
Reagans,
give me a call. That's what JJ Piccolo said. He said, you want to give me, he says, Roman Anthony, Christian Campbell, we'll talk for Cole Reagans. I heard him. I heard him say it.
It's between the lines, right?
Yeah.
Right. Not to be confused with the PBS classic Between the Lions. But so there was really only 3 points in this newsletter from Rogers, which, you know, it's tough when you don't hear these folks on the radio call. You know, I'm used to the radio broadcast sitting down with Piccolo and Cotrero on the Sunday games. I'm used to hearing that. We don't see them at these press conferences anymore. You know, he had the general manager meetings, and it's good to see some of these verbatim things so we don't have to go off of vibes from text messages like other reporters are doing. Hey, he still backed up everything that we said before. Starting pitching, trading that away is going to power how active they are in the trade market this winter, which shouldn't surprise anyone. But Jeremy, I saw a piece up on royalsreview.com questioning about how deep the Royals like rotation actually is to trade from. And that's something that you've brought up plenty of times this winter. I don't want to take too many points from Brian Henry here, but I want to plug folks so that they can go and read that. But I also want to hear your thoughts again, because I feel like it's been a while since we've heard.
Yeah, I mean, you've got more than 5 for sure, because you've got, off the top of my head, let's see how many I can name again: Cole Reagans, Chris Bubich, Ryan Bergert, Stephen Kolek, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha. So you've got 6. Did I say Noah Cameron?
No.
7. You got 7. If you bring back Bailey Falter, that's 8 potentially. Mason Black is a guy that potentially is a guy that you're looking at. But do you have a lot of faith in Falter or Black? No. So 7. So then you trade 1 or 2 of them away, and now you're back to having Rich Hill pitching for you in Omaha, trying to get back to the big leagues. And to take nothing away from what Rich Hill did for the team in his 3 starts, but that's not who you want taking a bunch of starts if guys get hurt. And guys get hurt. Pitchers get hurt. I did the math on it at one point late in the season, or maybe during the postseason, showing that the Royals didn't have more starting pitcher injuries than other teams. They just didn't have the depth that other teams had to bail them out, whether that was the Dodgers using guys like Robleski as bulkman or what have you. The Royals just, or the offense to carry the team when a guy like Rich Hill is filling in. The Royals just didn't have that. So if you're not going to have the starting pitching depth, whatever you do with your offense better be able to cover Mason Black getting a few starts or more than a few starts. I don't know that if you trade Noah Cameron and Chris Bubich away that you can count on that.
Yeah. I think that's a realistic way to look at it. And we're still trying to see the scales balance a little bit after the amazing injury luck that was in 2024. And then I would say, poor injury luck when it comes to the rotation in 2025.
I
You know,
literally just said that it wasn't, though. You gonna
I
argue with me, Jacob? You gonna tell me I'm wrong?
no, because I don't have all the data in front of me to say that you're
I
wrong.
don't
I'm
have
just
all the
going off
data in
of
front of me
vibes.
either. I just looked it up at one point.
I'm just going off of vibes here.
I mean, it feels like bad luck. I got
It
it. The
does.
Dodgers had more starters appear for them uh, in the regular season of 2025 than the Royals did. Now, some of that's openers, some of that's whatever, but those were the numbers I was using, was number of starters who appeared in the Royal. Noah Cameron filled in for a lot of the injury stuff that they had to deal with.
Yeah.
And that was good. That worked out for them. But when you had to go to the other guys, the Rich Hills, the Bailey Falters, didn't necessarily work.
No, it did not. Man, Falter was especially a black eye, I would say. There
Would
was
you say
nothing.
he faltered a little?
He stumbled at least. Yeah, and I've gone on the record several times that I believe in how deep this farm system is.
Mhm.
However, they still don't have a ton of depth that you could even consider depth options ready to go in AAA or
Right.
even in AA.
I
So
mean,
that complicates things further.
I'm as excited as anybody about Drew Beam and Shields, David Shields. I always confuse myself. I'm like, no, David Shields was the one who pitched in 2014, but that was James Shields
Yes.
and Churio and a bunch of other guys, but they're all in A ball.
Yeah.
Zobak maybe is somebody, but he was in AA last year, I think. You can't guarantee he's ready. Certainly the lefty that they drafted in the first round a few years ago with the big curve,
Mazzucato.
Mazzucato, isn't ready, may never be ready. At this point, I would be stunned if he ever pitches a big league inning for any team.
Yeah.
So Avila looks like a reliever, which he looks like a good reliever. So I'm not going
He
to
does.
complain, but
Yeah.
he looks like a reliever. So they're building talent, but it takes a while for that talent to percolate up to the big leagues, to matriculate, as Kansas City fans would like to say. Only this time we'll use it correctly. Matriculate up to the big leagues, but they're not there yet. So you got to fill in some gaps for at least a couple more years.
Yes. And I think that mindset was one reason why they took the chance on Black that they did. You know, it makes a lot of sense. And I will say this, it was strange to see the player that they traded away. I want to make sure that I have the
Logan
right name.
something.
Yes, Logan Martin was the guy that they traded away. He was still with the Royals prospects for the Arizona Fall League stuff, but he had to come out in his last outing wearing a Giants jersey. He's a Giants prospect now. So I thought that was a little funny. Yeah, it's, he was designated for assignment for a reason. And there are gonna be plenty of fringe 40-man guys that the bubble's going to burst eventually, and there's going to be a lot of available guys that you can squint and see this is how this person can help our roster. But at the end of the day, that was another guy that another organization said, this guy can't help our roster, and this is why we're moving on from him.
Yep. And those are guys you got to take chances on, but those are guys you also can't count on. So, the Royals pitching coaching is so good that I would absolutely not be stunned if Mason Black turns it. I mean, he has a prospect pedigree, so he's got stuff going for him. And if he gets some better coaching from the Royals, I think their pitching coaching is significantly better than whatever's going on in San Francisco. No offense to Giants fans out there. Maybe he'll turn into something, but you absolutely can't count on it at this point.
No, certainly can't. Thankfully, Black has a option. So a singular option remaining. But moving on to some other things that Piccolo talked about, talking about the outfield being the focus again, highlighting Kyle Isbell being an above average defender in center, but also saying left field has been, quote, a little bit of a revolving door, and how the Royals have to settle that and still have that roster flexibility. So I think that is Adam Frazier, baby. Adam Frazier, let's go.
I mean, he'll be part of it.
I think he will. I think, what is it? So, things slow down. MLB.com, they kind of get the same ideas going over and over again. But every time that they say the free agents that these teams should re-sign, it's been Mike Yastrzemski each time for the Royals. I think that they need to look at Adam Frazier a little bit more, because he makes a ton of sense from that positional versatility mindset.
Yeah, I think the Royals would love to have both of them come back.
I think so,
The
yeah.
impression I get is that Yastrzemski wants a multi-year deal, and they don't wanna give him a multi-year deal, so if he doesn't find what he's looking for in free agency, they'll circle back around and see what they could come up with. I think with Adam Frazier, it's probably, "Hey, we if I was the Royals, I would have said, 'Hey, Adam, I'll give you $2,000,000. You wanna come back right now?'" And Adam Frazier probably said, "Well, let me see what I can get out there." And they said, "Let us know. Maybe we'll outbid somebody for you, but the 2,000,000's there whenever you want it." So, I think that's kinda what we're looking at with both of those guys is they're exploring their options because why wouldn't you? But I think Frazier will ultimately be back with the Royals. Yastrzemski, it depends on if somebody looks at what he did in Kansas City and says, "Boy, I'd love to have that." A lot of teams are outfield needy out there right now, so
Yeah.
I could see someone maybe overpaying for Yastrzemski, and the Royals are gonna say, "Listen, we like you, but you're not the everyday guy we need out there."
Sayonara. Like,
Yeah, it'll
that's
be a bummer because I loved
you
having
will.
Mike Yastrzemski on the team. I finally figured out how to spell his name by the end of the year. Oh, I'd love to see him come back. He seems like a great guy, seems like a great fit, but, I want him to get paid as much as he can, so I hope he gets whatever he's looking for.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And one speaking of Adam Frazier, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the guy that the Royals sent back to Pittsburgh in exchange for Frazier at the trade deadline, Cam Devaney, who it was announced today. He is signing a deal with the NPBs. Man, I just had it pulled up. He's heading to Japan. All right.
Well,
The guy that
The Royals traded nothing for him,
yes.
nothing for Frazier because Devaney is not even staying with Pittsburgh.
No,
Wouldn't have stayed with the
he is
Royals either.
no, he definitely wouldn't have. He's heading to the Hanshin Tigers.
Yes.
So
The
that'll be interesting.
I believe that's the KFC team, not KF the team that had the Colonel's curse. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so the story goes that, they used to celebrate, it might have been championships by
Mhm.
jumping into I think it's the Sotenbori River, and I'm telling you all this from memory. I could look it up, but I'm gonna tell you from memory because then I might be wrong, but it'll be fun along the way. And then they won a championship, I think it was in the '80s, maybe '84, and they wanted, one person to jump into the river for each player on the team, and they had a white guy on the team, and so they were all like, "Well, none of us are white." So they took in Japan, I think they still have these. They have statues of Colonel Sanders outside of KFC locations. So they stole a statue from outside a KFC next to the river and threw that in the river, and then proceeded to not make the playoffs for decades. And they called it the curse of the Colonel for they Colonel Sanders cursed them for throwing his statue into the river. And they went and fished it out and then put it back in front of the KFC at some point and like chained it down, but it had lost its hands. They were like, "Oh no, we got to find the hands or the curse will still continue." They won again a few years ago, maybe
Oh my
2015.
goodness.
I don't remember, but which is more than a few years ago. But yeah, it was a whole. You gotta love sports curses. They're not a purely American thing.
No. They follow sports. Sports
Yeah.
and superstition go pretty much hand in hand. But yeah, it was, and I remember a friend of the podcast, and Far, bringing this up when the Royals traded Devaney away. That while he had really good minor league numbers, he was going to be a free agent at the end of at the end of the season, anyways. And when you see the result like this, Devaney, he did make his debut. He did debut with the Pirates, but he
Do you
struggled mightily.
I was gonna ask, do you have his major league numbers?
Yeah, I can
'Cause
look
I
him
I
up
was
real quick.
curious how good or bad they were in what I'm sure was a tiny sample size.
Yeah, only 36 at bats. Did have 5 hits at a 139 batting average, 167 slug, and good for a 351 OPS, a -1 OPS plus.
Eesh, yeah. I don't think the Royals missed out much by not
I,
promoting him.
no, I don't think they did either.
But I do have to remind everyone how much we were like, "Why wouldn't you just promote Cam Devaney instead of trading him for Adam Frazier?" The answer is Adam Frazier was much better than Cam Devaney. The
Yeah.
Royals knew what they were doing that time, and we didn't. So
Yep.
kudos to
That
them.
I will take that. I will take that loss all day, every day. That was one of those. We had a very poor reaction to that initially, and our reaction aged like milk. Speaking of guys that the Royals promoted or didn't promote last year, Piccolo's last point was on Jack Caglione
Yeah.
and Carter Jensen, talking about them in a lens of risk. Quote, you tried to evaluate how much risk is in your lineup at any one time, but also saying that he thinks the team is in a position to give both of them plenty of opportunities in
Well,
2026.
for right now, for sure.
Yeah. For now, both of them like fit into that
You
very
don't have
well.
any left fielder at all.
No.
You don't you either don't have a catcher or a designated hitter, depending on where you think Sal's going to spend most of his time. You don't have a right fielder if it's not Jack Caglione. You got tons of playing. You got 62 games for each of them right now.
Yeah, right now you do. Here's my one thing that I want to clear up, because I don't think we talked about it all last winter, but I remember you have Baseball America, and they'll do here's what the lineup is going to look like for this team 5 years down the line. And it was them, and then also Preston Farr a little bit, talking about moving Carter Jensen to left field. And I am scared that Royals fans are going to bring that idea up again, seeing the hole out in left field. And I implore you out there, please do not even think of it. Please do not manifest it. Please just move on and hope the Royals trade for a proper left fielder so we don't have to go through the MJ Melendez experience once again. Let's just keep him at his position.
Let's be honest, there's a hole at catcher if you move him off catcher.
Exactly.
Because Salvi does not need to be playing 150 games behind the plate. And who's the backup? Luca Tresh?
Freddie. Oh,
yeah.
well, Freddie.
I love Freddie, but I also am really glad to have Ryan Bergert and Stephen Kolek.
Same here. Yeah, and you know what? Carter Jensen, he did amazing things after his debut at the plate. He was awesome. He also looked really good behind the plate.
Mm-hmm.
So if you told me that, Carter Jensen is going to be getting 70% of the innings caught behind the plate, and Salvi is going to, go in there every now and then, but he's primarily going to be a first baseman designated hitter type, I'd be happy with that. I'd be okay with that. Let's go look at the numbers for how much better Salvador Perez performs at the plate when he is a designated hitter. It is, I'm not going to say it's night and day, but I want that version of Perez in the lineup every day rather than him catching and the catcher Salvador Perez in the plate, if that makes sense. Do you have anything else on Carter and Cags? Like we know what they are heading into 2026.
I thought I saw in that article that Piccolo clarified it was not necessarily going to be like a true split with Caglione in right field. Yeah. Not a true platoon situation, just trying to take a little pressure off of him, still have playing time for him, but also be like, well, you don't have to be the guy. We have someone who can step in. I may be misremembering that, but
no, he did say something to that effect. It was providing some nuance to the situation. Mm-hmm. How I interpreted what he said was it was more shoring up the floor in right field rather than trying to supplant Caglione in right field. Because we saw how volatile it looked out there with Caglione in right field at times. So try to shore that up a little bit and see what happens. But one way that the Royals are trying to shore up the overall outfield is going to be on the trade market, like we talked about. And reportedly, according to The Athletic, the Royals are getting calls specifically on catching prospect Blake Mitchell. They're joining, or they're on the good end of a group of teams trying to add catching depth or catching talent this offseason. The Athletic listed off teams like the Nationals, the Rays, the Padres, Astros, Brewers, and Rangers calling around the league trying to add a catcher. Meanwhile, Baltimore Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman is, I would call, the gem of this trade picture. But also you have Mitchell in there. You have Chicago White Sox. They had a rookie catcher, Edgar Caro, who was very, very good, but is also in a weird playing mix
Kyle
there.
Teal and another really high catching prospect whose name is escaping me at the moment.
But yeah, if they like, that's a position of strength that they can move on from. And then also Harry Ford of the Seattle Mariners. So that's not to say, okay, the Royals are definitely going to trade away Blake Mitchell. But if we look at how this rotation picture looks, and if teams are already interested in Blake Mitchell, well, let's see if we can find the right fit. Like, unfortunately, I look at these teams listed and I don't see an outfielder on those guys that says, okay, I think this is a sensible return for Blake Mitchell. But Jeremy, do you have another opinion there?
I've heard rumors that the Padres would like to move on from Fernando Tatis Jr.,
Really?
who happens to be an outfielder. I don't know what that I haven't even pulled up the BTV to see what that trade would look like, but that is an outfielder, and the Padres have already overpaid for one Royals catcher. Why not do it again?
Yeah, that Padres like talent pipeline right now is in a very interesting spot. So Blake Mitchell would go a long ways in that. But I mean, shoot, how much longer is on Fernando Tatis's deal?
Lot.
That is a
Let me
lot of
pull
money,
that up
man.
here real quick.
Which, not to say, Fernando Tatis on the flip side, you look at this, you have Bobby Witt Jr. going platinum for AL, you had Tatis go platinum for the NL. A very, very talented player in his own mind. In my mind, he never really rebounded to that face of the league status that he had for a little bit after the suspension. Never really got back to that. But his playing,
he had 6.1 FWAR last year.
right? He is. I was going to say he's still a great player, though.
That was his second best season so far.
All right.
He becomes a free agent after the conclusion of the 2034 season.
Oh man, whew, that's tough.
And he has an AAV of 24.25 million.
Man, well,
but
I mean,
if you want to, let me pull up the BTV now. Let's see what Baseball Trade Value says about his surplus value. That's Baseball Savant.
And if you're ever, so I know we watch a lot of baseball here, and we might be a little bit more familiar with players than the average fan. But Tatis, he's still very young. He is 26. He is going to be 27 on opening day. But you look at, okay, how long is that contract going to run? Well, he still should be in good playing condition at the conclusion of that contract. You can see a 14-year deal and balk at the fact that it goes that long, but thankfully he signed that pretty young. So hopefully that would bode well for a team that acquires him.
BTV has him at 83.3 million surplus value. So
Man.
Blake Mitchell is barely getting that trade started.
Yeah.
You're looking at that might be Cole Reagan's territory, honestly.
Yeah. It would. It absolutely would. And I think it speaks to the level of catching talent they are looking to acquire, since you had the Padres just trade for Freddie Fermin.
Mm-hmm.
And they still want to improve the position from there.
Yeah, I think they knew when they traded for Freddie that he wasn't the answer for them long term. They were just like, we can get Freddie, and he's better than what we've got, which is an absolute disaster.
It was terrible. It was terrible for them. It was like Elias Diaz and Martin Maldonado, or the shell
and they were
Maldonado.
Not the Elias Diaz or Martin Maldonado of years past either.
Nope, not even close. But definitely something to keep in mind, especially as I feel like as we transition, the Arizona Fall League is completely in the books now. The surprise Saguaros, who the Royals are a part of that roster, they won their third AFL title in 4 seasons. So congratulations to them. That has to be a great feeling to close out baseball for the calendar year for most of those players. Mitchell, he didn't have a barn burning year. He struggled. He got on base a ton, but we know he could do that. It was all about the power. And while he did come up big in the postseason, which, in the semifinals, he went like 2 for 3, 2 walks, 2 RBI in that win. Like that was a great game. He also got the scoring started for Surprise in the championship, but overall, he had a 745 OPS with 1 home run across 19 games. Most of that was his on base percentage. Just the power never came back, man. It was disappointing.
The good news is that it does sound like a lot of teams are still very interested in him. So the lack of power this year is not turning people away. They love the eye at the plate.
Yeah.
And they love the catching tools. Apparently, he's still very highly regarded around the league. So, and I think we've said it kind of in spurts and bits, but if the Royals are going to make a big trade for a bat, it's going to involve at least one of Noah Cameron or Blake Mitchell, probably.
Right. And I will say this. So over the weekend, I found out this website that basically visualized all the data from the AFL in a baseball savant manner. And I spoke too soon on this because I hadn't looked up his card before just this minute. And his max exit velocity for the AFL was in the 99th percentile at 116.5 miles per hour. Yeah.
That's pushing up near O'Neill Cruz territory.
That it is. And when you pair that with the fact that his average exit velocity was in the 85th percentile, bat speed was in the 80th percentile, that speaks to physically the hard hit stuff is still there. Maybe just the results weren't there. Primarily he's not getting it in the sweet spot according to this data at all. But you talked about that 96th percentile in walk rate with a 23.8% walk rate. Just an absurd stuff for any batter, much less a catcher, and also 95th percentile in chase rate. Does not go after too many pitches.
Can we move him to left field?
I don't think so.
He's not major league ready anyway, but
No, he's absolutely not major league
too
ready.
good defensively to move him from behind the plate. Or at least
I don't
that's
know.
the reputation. I haven't actually watched him play.
I want to maybe let's circle back to that. Let's circle back to that crazy idea later on in the offseason. I do want to point out that Daniel Vasquez, shortstop, who I kind of written off because he was stuck in Colombia for a few years. The glove is still there. He led all Royals prospects in OPS with a 927 OPS, and his 11 stolen bases and 21 RBI led all surprise batters. He is Rule 5 draft eligible this year for the first go-around. I don't think the Royals are going to add him to the 40-man roster simply because he either just made it to Double-A or he's like on the cusp of Double-A. I could be no, he did. He had 5 Double-A games this year, but he still aways. Yeah,
It's 5
he's
more
still,
than I got.
I'll agree with that. The bat's just it's still not there in the minor leagues.
5 more games above the at the high school level than I got at the high school level or higher.
And then of course Carson Rockefeller did great things for surprise. He definitely, I think
I'm excited about him, but he's not ready yet either.
No. I think if they needed to in 2026, he could help the major league roster. He is not going to fix the outfield problem though.
Yeah.
If you need to put a bracket on him. But Jeremy, before I don't have a whole lot else on the Royals front to talk about. Do you want me to just pull up Fangraphs and do the Rule 5 rundown since that's coming up? So these are if you need a quick reference, you go over to Fangraphs and they have like a roster crunch analysis for each team. So it's been pretty good looking at trade ideas as well. The fringe prospects that they have listed as adding ahead of the Rule 5 draft as candidates, not as suggestions, as candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Vasquez, pitcher Ben Kudrna, outfielder Gavin Cross, catcher Luca Tresh, reliever Brandon Johnson, reliever Christian Chamberlain, reliever Chaz Martinez, infielders Javier Vaz and Peyton Wilson, and then starting pitcher Felix Arande. Oh, also infielder Brett Squires. Like none of these are I look at this, none of these are guys that are going to contribute to the major league roster from the word go.
I could see Luca Tresh on the major league roster because I suspect they're going to want a third catcher because Salvi and Carter are going to be in the lineup together most days.
I agree with that. And I also like Tresh's ability behind the plate. That's, there are so many catchers who can carve out a pretty healthy catching career with being subpar batters, but they're really good at, framing and throwing batters out, things like that.
Just ask he of the squarest jaw in baseball, Luke Maile.
Yeah. And then also, was it Luke Maile who got a Coaching gig?
I didn't hear that, if it happened.
Hold on. It was the Seattle Mariners' new bullpen coach was either the Seattle Mariners' new bullpen coach, Austin Nola.
Okay.
Remember him?
Yeah, he was Luke Maley of 2024.
Exactly. But overall, I don't know if this whole Rule 5 draft deadline is going to have a lot of drama for the Royals, unfortunately.
I think they've gotta add Kudrna, and I bet they'll add Tresh just because I think they're planning for him to be on the roster anyway.
Yeah.
I I don't know that they will or should add any of the rest of those guys
Yeah. And I would,
unless
off the
unless they think Gavin Cross's second half meant something.
think so.
I don't, and or Daniel Vasquez, who had a pretty good AFL. I don't know. That's about it. Like you were saying, I wasn't ignoring you. I was remembering what you had said about him.
I understand. And that was a point that Fangraphs brought up was that Vasquez's bat is so far behind where it usually is for a prospect of his experience and things like that. But his glove is so valuable that a team might actually add him in the Rule 5 draft if they need that infield kind of bench glove. So that's something to keep in mind. But, ultimately, that's a situation where if a prospect gets selected of that pedigree, I'm like, okay, good luck to you in your new area. I'm sure we'll see you return to the team come June. And yeah, you talk about that second half. I think it's easy to forget how good that second half from Gavin Cross was. A 133 WRC plus after July with a 853 OPS. He really found a good power stroke, which fueled his success. But I don't know if he was a ninth overall pick back in 2022. He's got the draft pedigree that you would say, let's add him to the 40-man roster. But I just don't know if you add him only to protect him from the Rule 5
Right.
draft.
And I don't know if there's room for him. Like, does he make sense as a backup outfielder? I don't know how good his glove is. I don't think he's got the speed of a John Rave. So,
No.
and the
Um,
bat isn't enough that you're like, well, that's a guy I'm excited to have as a pinch hitter, probably.
right. And shoot, if Gavin Cross gets added to the 40-man roster, if you are one of Drew Waters or MJ Melendez, that hot seat just got a whole
MJ
lot
Melendez is
hotter.
not even going to be, he's not even a question. He's gone. I don't care if it's not official yet. He's gone. Drew Waters is an interesting case, but we'll see.
Yeah, that we will. We got a lot of off season in front of us. So make sure you keep tuned to royalsreview.com for all the news on what the Royals are or aren't or should do this offseason. All right, Jeremy. So I know we took up a lot of time, but so you brought up this Hall of Fame um talk
Mhm.
because it was something we talked about earlier on this year that hey we should really discuss this because we do disagree about it. But there is a news tie here because of the contemporary baseball era player ballot has that's going to be decided in the winter meetings in early December, right?
Yeah, and it came out a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it'll meet in December 2025, and it's players who have retired at least 15 years ago and played most of their careers after 1980. So it's the contemporary baseball era, and it came out a couple weeks ago. But we've had a lot to talk about with the Royals, so we haven't gotten around
Yeah.
to it.
So the
December
primary I'll
7th. Sorry.
December 7th, thank you. So this year's ballot is very contentious, I will say. You
Hmm.
have Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, Ron Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield, and the late Fernando Valenzuela. This is there's a cloud hanging over this player ballot, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's handled because we've already seen how the cases of Bonds and Clemens have been handled in the normal BBWAA ballot. We've already seen how like that judgment levied, I would say. But Jeremy, I want to give the floor to you first. Why are you watching this player ballot?
I think Barry Bonds. I think it's ridiculous that he's not in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best hitters the game has ever seen. And I know there's the whole steroid thing, but I gotta whenever someone brings up steroids, I gotta ask two questions. The first question is, how do you feel about Mickey Mantle in the Hall of Fame? Does Mickey
Yeah.
Mantle belong in the Hall of Fame? Mickey Mantle did greenies. That's also a performance enhancing drug. And do you think that Barry Bonds without steroids would be a Hall of Famer? If your answer is no, you're crazy. So put the guy in the Hall of Fame. Was it? I mean, it's just the idea of banning or of not selecting guys because you think they cheated, and I don't even remember if there's actually any evidence against Bonds or if it's all just a bunch of he said, she said, nonsense. But Barry Bonds was so good that he just belongs in the Hall of Fame. I don't care if he did steroids. I think that a lot of guys are doing steroids, and those guys weren't putting up the numbers that Barry Bonds was. So that's where I stand on it.
I gotcha. And this is if you like me, who I was, I was too young to really understand what was going on with the whole steroid stuff and how serious that was. I highly suggest go and read Game of Shadows, a book by Lance Williams, and I'm blanking on the other author. It's Mark something. Very, very good book, explains it in detail, especially when it comes to Balco and their role in it. So I've long been a guy who thinks if you were caught up in the steroid use and it is on paper, you got a suspension for it, or you had some like more than allegations, right? That's the line that I have. It needs to be like founded, and needs to be tested in my mind. I don't think that you should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Now, what's the kicker against that? Because Jeremy does bring up a good point that it's valid. It's hard to explain this era of these and thousands baseball without so many of these guys linked to steroid usage. It is hard to explain that scope of baseball without guys like Alex Rodriguez and Barry Bonds. It's hard to paint that picture. And I know that it's still fresh in so many of our minds, but the Hall of Fame has served as a way for people to stay informed about the game of old. So, it might have an impact 40, 50 years down the line. And unfortunately, I wouldn't vote for it. And I fully believe that if a guy got into the Hall of Fame who had that on his record, then that would be something that they would be confronted with and have to answer to, because that
Would
does
would you
go
remove
ahead.
Mickey Mantle from the Hall of Fame?
I think that there's different steps to removing a guy rather than voting him in. And also the reality is
Would you
MLB
vote
did
for
not,
Mickey Mantle if you were voting if Mickey Mantle wasn't in, would you vote for him?
if we knew what we knew then, I would probably vote for Mickey Mantle.
What's the difference, Jacob?
Well, because did they know then what he was doing?
Yeah.
I don't believe they did.
Yeah,
I
they did.
thought he came out much later after his playing career. Also the fact that still sways my opinion on this so much. The fact that MLB did not start testing for steroids until like 1991 or 1992. Like most of baseball was happened before this testing started. So it calls into question, well, were these the guys who did it, or were these the guys who just got caught?
Well, I think they're just the guys who got caught. And a lot of the guys who got caught, like you said, that there were scandals involved where they were supposed to be doing anonymous testing and the testing didn't end up being anonymous and the results got leaked and they shouldn't have been. Talk about not knowing things. We aren't legally supposed to know some of these things.
That's true.
So
I'd Go ahead.
I was just going to move on unless you want to say more on that.
I think that while it is tough to talk about baseball without like erasing Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa and Barry Bonds from it, it's tough to talk about baseball and a peak of baseball. It also overshadows, who was actually clean. Like how many players lost out on opportunities to earn more money
How many
and
players were
advance in
actually
their
clean?
careers. And like we said, who actually did it and who actually got caught. I think that baseball is evolving in an interesting way when it comes to talking about steroids, the further away that we get from this peak. And we're looking at it more from a legacy and entertainment value rather than a morality police value, if that makes sense. But yeah, Jeremy, that's all I have on that.
All right, so I just wanted to remind you of the other guys on the ballot and see which, if
Yeah.
any of them, you would vote for
Okay.
any reasons. So we've got Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Carlos Delgado, Jeff Kent, Don Mattingly, Dale Murphy, Gary Sheffield and Fernando Valenzuela are the 8 guys who are on the contemporary baseball era player ballot for December 7th, 2025. Do you need a moment to think? Because I've been looking at them and thinking, so I
Well,
can go.
yeah, if you've already been looking at them, I'd like you to start off here.
Gary Sheffield, I think, it's insane that he's not already in the Hall of Fame. He's one of those guys where somebody claims that he did steroids. He was in the Mitchell report and stuff like that, but there's no let's see, it's in the book Game of Shadows alleged that Sheffield worked with and received steroids from his and Barry Bonds' personal trainer, but there's very little evidence that he did steroids, and he played a lot of very good baseball before any allegations of steroid use. That also holds true for Barry Bonds. So I would vote for him. Of the rest of them, I think the only guys who really even have a case are Jeff Kent and Valenzuela. And Fernando, I think, has a case as much because of what he meant to the game as a
Yeah,
guy who brought in the Mexican fans
yeah.
as his stats. And is the second highest, or the after Clemens, Bonds, and Sheffield, who are all incredibly high career WARs. You've got Kent is the only guy above 50 after that in career WAR,
Wow.
FWAR. So he's at 56, which feels like it's right on the edge, like right at the top of the Hall of Very Good, but right at the bottom, maybe of the Hall of Fame. It depends on. I think he still holds the career record for most home runs by a primary second baseman. Don't quote me on that though. But he hit a lot of home runs. So maybe 377 home runs. That's not even. I mean, if he hit 400, maybe we could talk about it. But then again, we're talking about get Salen at 350, but catching is a different position.
Yeah.
I I don't know. I could If you voted for Kent, I could understand it. If you didn't vote for Kent, I would also understand it. And I'm not voting for Clemens because of the
Yeah.
personal life stuff, not the steroid stuff. So that's where I'm at.
Um, let's see here. So I'll tell you who I would vote for. Certainly, I'm of the camp I would vote for Don Mattingly. Well, actually, hold on. Excuse me. I I had the wrong numbers pulled up in front of me. Gary Sheffield, I would certainly be voting for.
So his
And
steroid
then
case isn't strong enough for you to not vote it, to
no,
avoid voting for him. Okay.
no, I do. Like I said, I do have a line there, and Bonds did cross that line. I don't, unless there's some information that I'm unaware of or haven't seen yet. Sheffield, I'm not. I'm not holding that against. Valenzuela, I think is an interesting case to talk about because, like you said, statistically he's not as strong as his peers. But holy smokes, did he have a cultural impact
Mhm.
on baseball? And this was it's hard to think about baseball right now without the Spanish speaking aspect of it, like being how big it is right now. It simply wasn't before Valenzuela. Like that was him coming to the big leagues and having the success he did was a huge shift in baseball. Yeah, that's probably all I would vote for. Like I don't think that Mattingly or Murphy have super strong cases.
Mattingly is I've always heard people talk so glowingly about him, but when I look up his numbers from 84 to 87, he was, or from 84 to, yeah, 87, those 4 years, he was
Mhm.
very, very good.
Yeah.
But after that, he was just good. And he never crossed an 8 FWAR season. Never hit more than 35 home runs in a season, and only 3 times eclipsed 30. More times than that, he hit fewer than 10.
Yeah.
So not a home run guy, not he batted 307, which isn't that great for the time period. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't
Mhm.
great. He wasn't Hall of Fame.
And I think like he's gonna be a you look at the career numbers and like, okay, how do you compare his career to another guy? Like I think you can look at a guy like maybe Freddie Freeman, excuse me.
I was like,
Or
"What?"
yeah, no, hold on. I that would have been wild. Freddie
That's a
Freeman
hot
or
take, Jacob.
yeah. Yeah, I'd have some Yankee fans coming for my throat on that
Freddie
one.
Freeman already has more career WAR than Mattingly.
It's like already. I'm saying like right now, it's just very comparable. Maybe Nolan Arenado would also be a guy.
Mattingly had about 40. Freddie's got 65.
Really?
Yeah. he's a lot better, and he doesn't so he tops out at a 6.8 FWAR season, but he's
Yeah.
been consistently 4-ish,
Okay.
4-ish or better since 2013 for more than a decade.
Gotcha.
He had a 3.3 in 2015. He had a 3.0 in 2020, but that was the 60 game season. He had a 3.0.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
That's
he
pretty
doesn't
wild.
have the peak, and it'll be an interesting case when Freeman does ever come up for Hall of Fame because he a lot of times what they look at is longevity and peak. He's got the
Yeah.
longevity. He's got
Yeah.
that. He doesn't have the peak. So it'll be interesting to see how they vote for him, but he's got a much better case in my mind than Mattingly.
Yeah. Um, one. So before I ask this final question, one detail that is important to note on this. I'm reading this verbatim. Starting with this year's ballot, any candidate on the contemporary baseball era player ballot who does not receive at least 5 votes will be ineligible for consideration on the next ballot. In addition, any candidate who does not receive at least 5 votes in multiple ballots will be permanently ineligible for all future ballots. So this isn't like the 10-year window that you get with the normal Hall of Fame ballot. So that being said, Jeremy, do you think that this is the year that we see Barry Bonds get into the Hall of Fame?
Probably not.
You don't
But
think
I
so?
think the next time I think they'll bring him back again someday because they
Okay,
rotate the eras, and maybe not the next time this era comes up, but eventually, I think Barry Bonds gets in. I think eventually the steroid era gets far enough behind us that everyone goes, "Oh, I don't care anymore. Just put the guy in. He was very good."
fair enough. I'm trying to remember who votes on that.
There's a special committee. Let's see, the
So
Contemporary
eight
Era
former
Baseball
big league,
Committee.
yeah, 8 former big league players comprise the contemporary baseball era player ballot. Excuse me. Shoot, I thought I had the answer right there.
Um, uh, in 2023, we know that it consisted of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Hall of Famers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 executives, and 3 media and historians, including
Hmm.
Susan Slusser, who writes for the Chronicle, San
Gotcha,
Francisco
gotcha.
Chronicle.
Hmm.
They had Greg Maddox, Jack Morris, Ryan Sandberg, Lee Smith, Frank Thomas, and Alan Trammell were the Hall of Famers who voted in 23.
So I don't know. This is a tough one. I think you can go either way on it. I have a gut feeling that Bonds gets in on this ballot. I don't know why, but I'm just saying like that's my
I mean, it
gut
depends on
reaction
who's
to this.
voting a lot too, I think. Having
Yeah,
players and executives voting instead of media members, maybe he gets a better shot.
I think so. It's I don't know. That's always been talk about the Hall of Fame ballot is how much it is a what's it called? Like a personal relationship process as well as
Mhm,
having a good playing career. Roger Clemens is a great example of that.
mhm. Well, he
Alrighty,
also
Jeremy.
I mean, he had some of the most rock solid steroid stuff.
Yeah, he
Didn't
did.
he
He
confess
did.
to it at one point?
Oh, I thought so. Thought so. This is and like I sit here talking about Game of Shadows. Game of Shadows talks primarily about Balco. And like that specifically, I would love to see some reference come up about like this is what happened when and how. Because like you
Nobody
said, the
knows.
well, if he had admitted to it, but Jeremy, honestly, I don't have anything else on the Royals front. I don't have
We do
anything else on
have
the Hall of Fame front.
just
What
real
I
quick,
missed?
we do have some guys with some Royals ties who are eligible for the regular ballot this year.
Ooh, okay,
We have, let me get this back up. We have Homer Bailey is eligible
yep,
this year. Emilio Bonifacio.
woo,
Let's see, Alex Gordon,
yeah,
Elvin Herrera, Jeremy Jeffress, Eric Kratz. Hey, Daniel Murphy. I know he's not directly related to the Royals, but helped him win it. Edinson Volquez.
yep. It's a pretty good group of former Royals players on the or eligible for the ballot. Excuse
And
me.
none of them will be Alex Gordon is the only one of those I could see even being on the ballot, and he will not get the 5% to stay on.
No, I don't think so. Which it's sad to see that be the case, but that unfortunately is just the reality of the
I
situation.
don't actually see Edwin Encarnacion might get enough votes to stay on for a little bit, but I'm not sure he gets elected. And I don't see anyone else on this list that even gets enough votes for 5%. This is a
Yeah.
weak ballot. And of course, returning, we have Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones. I think Andrew Jones finally gets in. Beltran might too. Chase Utley, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez for his 10th season. He might finally get in. Andy Pettit, Felix Hernandez, Bobby Abreu, Jimmy Rollins, Omar Vizquel, Dustin Pedroia, Mark Burley, Francisco Rodriguez, David Wright, and Torrey Hunter are all returning.
Okay. And for folks who are wondering how far Alex Gordon is specifically off of the expected marks, I prefer referring to Jaws here.
It's a good one.
I think it's a good one stop. The average of 24 or 21 Hall of Fame left fielders is a 53.5 in Jaws. Alex Gordon had a 33.
Yeah.
So he's pretty far behind the pack on that one. So unfortunate, but hey, he'll always
Be a
be in the
Royals Hall of
minds of Royals
Famer.
fans. Yes, that he will.
I wonder
That
if
he
he'll ever
will.
get his number retired. What do you think? Salvi's
I don't
getting
think
his number
so.
retired, right? We agree
Yeah.
that he's getting his number retired.
Yeah, he is. I don't think Gordon gets his.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think at the end, if the last 4 years, if that 4-year deal had gone better, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think that because up to that point, I was sure that his number would be retired as a Royal, and we'd have that statue of him pointing to the sky, rounding first base with the World Series home run. We still might get that statue with the new stadium.
I hope we do. That's a
I
cool moment.
I think that a statue is a good way to remember him.
Yeah.
But yeah, the number retirement, especially because the Royals have been they've only retired 3 numbers the entire time they've existed. Oh.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, I was like, no, it's definitely 4. Oh wait, no, it's everyone has Jackie Robinson's number retired. But yeah, it's and there's a lot of notable Royals that are left out of this retired number clique. George Brett, Frank White, and Dick Hauser.
Yeah.
Those are the guys who had their numbers retired.
You think Ned Yost might get his number retired someday?
I don't think so.
I think the only reason Dick got his number retired was because he died of brain cancer. Was it brain cancer?
Right.
Or was that
Quiz?
Quiz was brain cancer.
No, I thought that Dick Hauser died of some sort of cancer.
It was some sort of cancer.
Yeah. Well, and you say that, is Ned Yost going to get his retired? Well, that's one reason why Hauser was notable is because he was a World Series winning manager.
But then he also had the tragedy.
Yeah. Let's see.
And
here.
the tragedy gets you votes sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a brain tumor.
If Ned Yost, I'm so glad he didn't, but if he died falling out of that deer blind.
That's right.
Before he did the Verizon commercials. If Verizon hadn't saved Ned Yost, things might be different. I think I'd rather we didn't retire his number and we got to keep him around for longer, but yeah.
I would as well. I think I've started to appreciate Ned Yost a little bit more as the years have gone on. All right, Jeremy, we did a long episode. Do you have a burning review?
I've got some stuff I can do, but I can hold it if we need to.
Go ahead and make it quick.
All right, then I will give you the movie review. I had a movie review and a game review. I'll give you the movie review. I mentioned real in passing last time that I watched the new Fantastic Four and it was bad.
Yeah.
Not a good movie. Just, again, very, very, bland as bland. It was the blandest bland that ever blanded. And so watching that, I was like, man, I really liked the 2005 Fantastic Four. So I'm going to go rewatch that. And boy, howdy, that's a solid movie.
Yeah.
It's not a great movie, but it's solid. And it's cheesy as heck. But comic books, I remember a time when comic books were allowed to be cheesy. Okay, Jacob? So I like a little cheese sometimes. And boy, is that movie cheesy, but it's got some really fun characters. And, it's a little bit of a product of its time with the soundtrack and with some of the interactions with women. But it's still a crap ton of fun. And I really enjoyed rewatching that movie. So a lot of people love the new Fantastic Four. Whether you loved it or not, go watch the old one. It's also on Disney Plus because they bought the whole Fox library. Also, there's that Fantastic Four in the middle that I never watched. I feel like I should go watch it just to see how it compares to the newest one. But go watch the 2005 one, and I think you're gonna find a movie that's better.
All right, very interesting. Children's movie review: Gabby Dollhouse, the movie. Goddaughter is obsessed with Gabby Dollhouse. It's on Netflix. The movie is very interesting to watch from an adult perspective. It has Kristen Wiig as someone who I can just describe as like a Los Angeles businesswoman who is slowly descending into madness. And it's a very interesting movie to watch from an adult perspective. It's an entertaining for kids as well. Also, congrats to Jackie Bradley Jr. on being the number 1 overall pick in the Banana Ball draft from this past weekend. So he is going to go play for the Indianapolis Clowns. Which, if you don't know anything about the Indianapolis Clowns and why they are important, I suggest you go and do some research on that. But folks, we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. So I appreciate y'all's patience with us today. Would genuinely, there's a lot of gray area in this Hall of Fame discussion that we had. I would love to hear from y'all on social media about it. Our links are down in the podcast description below. Also, make sure you go check out Jeremy's blog while you are down there in the links. I am Jake Milham. They are Jeremy Greco. Thank you so much for joining us today. And until next time, oh, Royals.